Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are sinking our teeth into one of the most complex and fascinating magic systems I have ever come across. We're talking about a cosmic war, two incredibly powerful families, and the heirs they're training to fight it. Yeah, we're going deep inside the Sigil Enhancement Program.
So, let's just jump right in with the big question that hangs over everything. When your enemy isn't just an army, but a cosmic force that literally feeds on fear and hate, how in the world do you train someone for that fight? Well, the answer starts with something called the Sigil Enhancement Program.
All right, here's our game plan for today. First, we'll break down the basics, the building blocks of power in this universe. Then, we're going to look at two very different, almost competing philosophies for how to use that power. After that, we need to understand the enemy they're up against. And finally, we'll see how these two different paths might just lead to the same destination.
Okay, first things first. Before we can get into the grand strategies, we have to understand the tools these warriors, they're called Dream Knights, are actually working with. And believe me, this goes way beyond just swinging a sword. This is about learning to manipulate the very code of their reality.
Every single Dream Knight has what's called a sigil. Now, don't think of it as just a weapon. It's more like a personalized operating system for their soul, for their innate talents. It's the unique interface they use to channel their power, and as we're about to see, it can be enhanced and upgraded in some pretty mind-blowing ways.
So, if the sigil is the operating system, then affinities are the software. These are elemental connections, things like wind or fire, that are literally passed down through family bloodlines. You can think of them as the source code that determines what kind of apps or abilities a knight can actually run.
And this right here is where things get really interesting. See, most knights have affinities that either build things up, those are generation elements, or tear them down, which are destruction elements. But a polar type, they can do both. Having this balance gives them an unbelievably versatile and powerful toolkit, making them some of the most feared and respected knights out there.
Okay, now let's see how these basic ideas get built into a full-blown combat philosophy. We're going to start with our first heir, Arlene Atlas Saberfang. Her family's entire doctrine is built around one thing: strategy and absolute information dominance.
Arlene, of course, is a polar type, and you can see how her specific affinities are the key to everything. Wind gives her precision across massive distances. Water gives her flexibility and a kind of sixth sense. And lightning gives her incredible speed and defense. When you put all that together, you get a totally unique fighting style that's all about one core concept: efficient multitasking on a superhuman level.
So how does she actually use that multitasking? Well, her training is focused on mastering these four parameters of data capture. It's not just about seeing the battlefield. It's about mapping the terrain in real time, analyzing enemy movements to predict their next step, tracking their resources to figure out their entire strategy, and even reading the emotional climate of the fight. This isn't defense, this is total information warfare. And here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. They take a simple ability, like a bat's echolocation, and turn it into a weapon. By sending out sonic waves, her sigil creates this perfect 3D map of everything around her, even in total darkness. She can even tell what things are made of. So get this, she's not seeing through walls with magic, she's doing it with physics. And that brings us to the absolute core of the Atlas Saberfang philosophy. This quote, which ironically comes from their greatest enemy, says it all. To them, information isn't just a part of the battle. It's the ultimate form of control. Because if you know everything your opponent is going to do before they even think of it, well, the fight's already over, isn't it?
All right, let's switch gears completely and look at our second heir, Mitsuki Kurosawa Asante. If the Atlas Saberfang family is all about observing reality, the Kurosawa Asante family is about breaking it. Their path is less about strategy and more about fundamentally rewriting the laws of physics. Her training is straight-up metaphysics. It starts at the literal beginning of time, with the primordial elements and the exact sequence of creation. They believe that if you understand the precise order in which the universe was built, you can learn how to take it apart and put it back together however you want.
Now check this out. This is how they explain gravity, and it is wild. They teach that the universe is like a giant water-filled balloon. And when you add mass, like a star, it pushes the water out of the way. That displacement creates this inward pressure on everything inside, and that pressure is gravity. It's the universe literally holding itself together. So if you understand gravity as just a physical pressure coming from massive objects, you realize you can pick your source. Mitsuki's training is all about learning to switch between harnessing the moon's gravity, which changes, to the sun's, which is this constant, overwhelming force. It means she is never,
ever without her primary weapon. So here's where all that physics theory smashes into actual combat. A trigger event is any tiny preparatory action an opponent makes before they attack, the way they shift their weight before a kick, the slight crouch before they lunge. By mastering how to read these tiny signals, Mitsuki can counter an attack before it's even really begun. She's not just reacting fast, she's operating milliseconds ahead of her opponent's own mind.
So, okay, we've got these two incredibly deep, almost scientific approaches to fighting. You have to ask, why go to all this trouble? Why is this level of training even necessary? Well, it's because the enemy they're preparing to face, the Weaver of Calamity, is not a conventional army. Not even close.
Using those insane information-gathering skills we talked about, Arlene gets a peek at the threat, and the scale is just horrifying. Her sigil doesn't just see a big army, it individually counts millions of enemy units getting ready to invade. The numbers alone are almost impossible to wrap your head around.
And don't make the mistake of thinking this is just a mindless horde. No, this is a highly organized, strategic military. I mean, look at this table. You've got specialized units for every scenario. Aerial units to kill archers, heavy infantry to break a charge, but then look at the last one. Their first general isn't a person. It's the concept of cowardice itself, a force designed purely to make people turn on each other.
And this is the truly terrifying part. The Weaver of Calamity runs on negative human emotions. It doesn't just cause fear and hatred, it literally consumes them. It's an engine that's fueled by despair. The more it can make humans hate and fear each other, the more powerful it becomes. You can't just beat it with swords. You have to beat the very feelings it represents.
Which brings us right back to where we started, with Arlene and Mitsuki. Suddenly, their intense, specialized training makes a whole lot more sense. These two doctrines were designed specifically to fight this kind of emotional, metaphysical enemy. Arlene's path is to be the ultimate information warrior. Her goal is to achieve such total battlefield awareness that there are no surprises. She uses statistical analysis to know what the enemy will do, and her objective is to completely nullify their strategy, turning their own plans against them.
Mitsuki, on the other hand, is the reality warper. By manipulating gravity and reading those trigger events, she doesn't care what the enemy's strategy is. She aims to nullify their initiative, to stop the physical act of an attack before it can ever land. She's not breaking their plan, she's breaking the laws of physics so their plan is impossible.
And that leaves us with this final massive question to chew on. These families aren't just training soldiers, they're architects. They're designing two halves of what could be a perfect weapon. One path masters information, giving you absolute knowledge. The other masters physics, giving you absolute control. So what happens when you combine them? What happens when you unite total knowledge and total physical control against an enemy that is literally made of pure, raw emotion?